I remember that night with an unsettling clarity, a night when the world, so meticulously ordinary just moments before, shifted on its axis with a single, shivering knock at my door. It was mid-December, and the chill in the air felt as though it had seeped into my very bones long before the scratching began. I had been curled up in my favorite armchair, a mug of lukewarm tea trembling in my hands, lost in the quiet hum of routine when a persistent, almost desperate tapping shattered the silence. I hesitated, heart drumming in a rhythm I couldn't quite place. The sound was not the familiar knock of a neighbor or the careless clatter of a stray branch, it was something altogether different, a frantic scratching that seemed to carry both urgency and sorrow. With each hesitant step toward the door, the air thickened, charged with an inexplicable energy, as though the very atmosphere was holding its breath. The doormat was cold under my feet, and the faint light from the street lamp outside painted long, jittery shadows across the worn wood of my hallway. When I finally reached the door, my hand hovered for a moment over the handle. The world outside was a blur of icy darkness and swirling snowflakes, each one glinting like a shard of broken glass in the pale light. With a deep, uncertain breath, I turned the knob. The door creaked open, and there, pressed against the frame, was a small puppy, its fur matted with frost, eyes wide and shimmering with an intensity that belied its fragile form. For a heartbeat, I could barely register the sight. The creature's gaze met mine with a haunting familiarity, as if it had been waiting for me all along. I knelt down slowly, my voice soft and tentative. "Hey there, little one," I murmured, almost as if speaking to myself. The puppy's quivering form and the way it shivered in the biting cold evoked an odd blend of tenderness and unease. It wasn't just the cold that made it tremble, it was something more profound, a despair that seemed to emanate from its very soul. Its eyes, dark and unyielding, reflected a depth of emotion I couldn't decipher, longing, perhaps, or a silent plea for salvation. In that moment, as I scooped the little creature into my arms, the boundaries of my familiar reality began to blur. I could feel a subtle shift, like the gentle tug of a current beneath calm waters, a promise of change that was as thrilling as it was terrifying. The puppy's fragile body, so utterly vulnerable against the relentless winter, seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, its heartbeat a metronome that quickened my own pulse. I brought it inside, the warmth of my home suddenly feeling insufficient against the chill that had seeped into my soul. The initial moments were tender and deceptively ordinary. I wrapped the puppy in an old, worn blanket and set it by the radiator, its small form nestled against the comforting hum of heat. I couldn't help but marvel at the stark contrast between the creature's desperate vulnerability and the mundane sanctuary of my living room. Yet, even as I tried to settle back into the rhythm of a quiet night, an undercurrent of disquiet persisted. There was something about the puppy's presence, a subtle, almost imperceptible aura, that made the shadows in the corners seem to twitch with life, as if they were aware of secrets too terrible to speak aloud. Later that night, as I sat at my desk attempting to focus on some neglected work, I found my thoughts repeatedly drifting back to that piercing gaze. It was as if the puppy had etched its mark upon my consciousness, stirring memories I wasn't even aware I possessed. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still see those eyes, reflecting not just the room's dim light, but something deeper, an abyss of unsaid truths. I began to wonder if the creature had wandered in from the cold by mere chance, or if fate had conspired to deliver it to me. The notion was as unnerving as it was impossible to shake. Over the following hours, an uneasy stillness settled over my apartment. Outside, the wind howled with a mournful cadence, and the winter storm seemed to intensify, rattling the windows like spectral fingers probing for entry. Inside, the puppy slept fitfully, its tiny breaths a soft counterpoint to the relentless patter of rain on the roof. I tried to immerse myself in the comfort of routine, reading, jotting down thoughts in my journal, but a persistent dissonance clung to the atmosphere, a nagging awareness that something had irrevocably shifted. As midnight approached, I rose from my desk and walked to the window, drawn by a force I couldn't name. The street below was nearly empty, save for a few solitary figures hurrying along the sidewalks, their faces hidden beneath scarves and hats. The world outside was transformed by the storm, every light and shadow exaggerated into a tableau of eerie intensity. I couldn't shake the feeling that the night itself was alive, its every whisper and gust of wind imbued with hidden meaning. Somewhere in that swirling chaos, the echoes of an ancient tale, one of loss, of transformation, perhaps even of redemption, seemed to call out. I recalled the moment I had first cradled the shivering puppy in my arms, and an inexplicable thought took root. What if this tiny, fragile creature was more than it appeared to be? That thought was like a stone dropped into a placid pond, sending ripples of doubt and wonder through the calm surface of my mind. The days that had passed before, with their steady predictability, now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by an imminent, unsettling promise of change. I felt as though I had been cast into a narrative that defied the conventions of everyday life, a narrative in which the ordinary and the extraordinary were inexorably intertwined. In the hours that followed, the house took on an uncanny character. Shadows lengthened in corners where no light should have reached, and the soft hum of the radiator began to resemble murmurs in a language lost to time. I found myself walking from room to room, half expecting the very walls to speak to me, to whisper secrets of forgotten realms. Every creak of the floorboard, every sigh of the wind outside, carried with it the resonance of something otherworldly. I attempted to dismiss these sensations as the product of an overactive imagination, yet deep within, a part of me sensed that the veil between the mundane and the mystical had been irreparably torn. That night, as sleep eluded me, I sat on the edge of my bed, the little puppy now curled up at my feet. Its rhythmic breathing was a fragile counterpoint to the cacophony of my thoughts. I reached down to stroke its fur, each gentle touch sending shivers up my arm, not from the cold, but from a strange, electric current of connection. In that moment, the puppy's eyes fluttered open, and for an instant, I swear I saw an entire universe of unspoken sorrow and cosmic wonder reflected in them. It was as if the creature had borne witness to the secrets of the cosmos, carrying within its tiny frame the weight of mysteries too profound for mortal understanding. The next morning, the storm had subsided into a deceptive calm. Pale sunlight filtered through frost-laced windows, and the world outside appeared to have been scrubbed clean by the night's tempest. Yet, as I went about the rituals of a new day, brewing coffee, reading the newspaper, the memory of that nocturnal disquiet clung to me like a second skin. There was an undercurrent of expectation in everything, a hint that the ordinary would soon be shattered by forces both beautiful and terrible. I attempted to resume my normal routine, yet every corner of my home now whispered reminders of that surreal encounter. In the silence of the early afternoon, I would catch myself glancing at the little creature, wondering if it, too, was aware of the strange alchemy at work in our shared existence. It lay there, a small bundle of fur and fragile hope, exuding a quiet determination that belied its apparent weakness. Its presence was a paradox, a beacon of warmth amid the pervasive cold, an enigma that defied the simple labels of pet or stranger. As the day wore on, I began to notice subtler, inexplicable changes. The mundane became tinged with an almost spectral quality, the way the light danced on the dust motes in my living room took on a life of its own, the soft murmur of distant voices, carried by the wind, sounded almost like murmurs of old regrets. Even the familiar creak of my floorboard seemed to echo with the reverberations of long-forgotten memories. I couldn't shake the feeling that my world had expanded, that the thin veil separating the real from the unreal had been rent open, and through it flowed a torrent of hidden truths. That evening, as dusk began to settle and the temperature dipped once more, I found myself drawn to the front door again. There was an indescribable pull, a compulsion to seek out the origin of that transformative night. I stepped outside, the chill biting at my skin, and looked up at the starless sky. The puppy, now resting at my feet on the doorstep, stirred as if awakened by my silent summons. Its eyes caught the feeble light of a distant street lamp, glistening like tiny orbs of molten silver against the dark. I felt a strange kinship in that moment, a mutual recognition that we were both wanderers on the edge of something vast and unknowable. I hesitated before opening the door again, as if expecting it to lead to another world, a realm where the familiar laws of nature no longer applied, and where every shadow could hide a secret, every gust of wind might carry a message from beyond. In that suspended instant, my heart pounded with a mingled cocktail of dread and anticipation. It was as if I stood at the precipice of a great unknown, where every decision could ripple out into consequences I was not yet ready to fathom. And so, with trembling fingers and a mind awash in turbulent thoughts, I reached for the handle once more. The door swung open with a groan, revealing not just the familiar facade of my building, but an invitation into a deeper, more unsettling reality. The night beyond was no longer the benign winter chill I had known. It had taken on an almost sentient quality, as if it were alive and waiting to reclaim lost souls. In that moment, with the puppy's gaze fixed on mine, a gaze that seemed to speak of unspoken promises and dire warnings, I realized that my life had been irrevocably altered. I had opened the door not only to a small, freezing creature but to an unfolding narrative that would blur the lines between the known and the unknown, between sanity and madness. I stepped back inside, my mind reeling from the gravity of that simple, transformative act. As I closed the door behind me, I could almost feel the threshold sealing off the past, yet simultaneously beckoning me toward a future laden with uncertainties. The little puppy, now a silent sentinel at my side, seemed to exude an aura of quiet defiance against the encroaching darkness. With every beat of my heart, I sensed that the life I once knew was dissolving into something both terrifying and inexplicably beautiful, a tapestry woven from the threads of everyday existence and the wild, unpredictable forces that had always lurked just beyond the edges of perception. Even now, as I write these recollections in the dim light of an early winter morning, I am haunted by the echoes of that night. The memory of the puppy's eyes, shimmering with the weight of untold stories, lingers in my mind like a half-remembered dream, one that promised both salvation and damnation. I have come to understand that some encounters are not mere accidents of fate, but pivotal moments that shatter the illusion of normalcy and reveal the raw, pulsating heart of existence. And as I sit here, on the cusp of another uncertain day, I cannot help but wonder what further revelations await, what deeper mysteries lie hidden behind the next door, just waiting to change my life forever. The silence that now fills my home is punctuated by the quiet, steady breathing of the little creature at my feet, a reminder that even in the harshest winter, when all seems frozen and immutable, a single, fragile spark of life can ignite a cascade of transformation. I know not what lies ahead, nor can I predict how the threads of my destiny will intertwine with the enigmatic forces that have now entered my life. But one truth remains undeniable. In that fateful moment, when I answered the desperate scratching at my door, I embarked on a journey into a realm where every heartbeat, every whispered breath, and every fleeting glimpse of the extraordinary has come to define the very essence of who I am. And so, with a mix of trepidation and reluctant wonder, I prepare myself for the unfolding chapters of a story that I can no longer escape, a story that began with a single, freezing puppy, and whose reverberations will echo in the chambers of my heart for all the days to come. I soon discovered that the days following that fateful night were not measured by the slow tick of a clock, but by a series of inexplicable moments that defied ordinary time. Each morning, I awoke with the sensation of being both in a dream and painfully aware of the stark, physical world, a dissonance that grew heavier with every sunrise. The puppy remained by my side, its quiet presence a constant reminder that something extraordinary was unfolding beneath the veneer of my everyday existence. I began my mornings with a hesitant ritual, a cup of coffee that tasted of both warmth and distant memories, and a quiet glance toward the corner of the room where the creature slept. Its eyes, even in slumber, glimmered with an unspoken language, as if speaking in riddles that only my heart could partially decipher. I would often find myself wondering whether the little animal was simply a stray in need of shelter, or a harbinger of events that stretched far beyond the confines of my modest apartment. As the days progressed, an eerie symmetry emerged in the mundane details of my life. Routine tasks, the creak of the door when I left for work, the muted hum of traffic on rain-soaked streets, the soft whisper of pages turning in my old, cherished books, seemed imbued with a secret significance. Every sound carried an echo of that night, every shadow hinted at the unknown. It was as if the ordinary world had become a canvas upon which the surreal painted its unpredictable designs. Late one afternoon, after returning from an errand that felt more like a pilgrimage than a simple trip to the grocery store, I noticed an odd phenomenon. The reflection in the darkened window of a storefront caught my eye. For a fleeting second, among the familiar faces and blurred city lights, I saw a vision, a figure standing in the distance, draped in a coat that seemed to absorb the light around it. The image was so transient that I questioned whether it was a trick of the eye, or perhaps a memory of something that was not meant to be remembered. The puppy stirred at my feet, and its small, knowing gaze seemed to anchor me in the present, urging me not to let go of what I had seen. That night, as the city's neon glow gave way to the deep indigo of twilight, I found myself unable to sleep. Restlessness clawed at me as I lay in bed, eyes wide open, listening to the subtle, almost imperceptible sounds that had become my nocturnal companions, the distant wail of a siren, the rhythmic tapping of rain against the window, and, above all, a soft murmur that seemed to emanate from the very walls of my home. It was as if the structure itself had absorbed the magic and the madness of that strange encounter. I rose and moved to the living room, seeking solace in the familiarity of my surroundings. But nothing felt quite the same. The furniture, once a steadfast collection of comforting shapes, now loomed like silent sentinels guarding secrets of a forgotten era. I could almost sense the residue of long-lost conversations, of hopes and fears etched into the very fabric of the room. The puppy, nestled quietly on a cushion, looked up at me with eyes that were heavy with both wisdom and sorrow. In that gaze, I detected an unspoken message, that there were questions I had yet to ask, and mysteries I was destined to uncover. Driven by an insatiable need to understand the phenomenon that had so abruptly altered my life, I embarked on a journey into the archives of my own memories and the dusty tomes of local history. I pored over old journals and yellowed newspaper clippings in the hope that I might find a clue, a single thread to unravel the tapestry of surreal events that now wove through my days. I began to notice patterns in the chaos, coincidences that felt orchestrated rather than random. A series of dreams, each more vivid and symbolic than the last, suggested that the puppy was not merely a lost animal, but a guide sent to steer me toward a destiny I had never imagined. In one recurring dream, I found myself walking along a frozen river under a sky smeared with the soft hues of dawn. The ice beneath my feet was as clear as glass, and every step sent ripples of light and shadow dancing in intricate patterns. There, on the banks, stood the puppy, transformed into a creature of luminescence and shadow, beckoning me to follow. Its eyes, deep pools of mystery, reflected both the brilliance of the stars and the darkness of forgotten realms. I awoke with a start, my heart pounding in the silence of my room, the echo of that spectral vision resonating in every beat. It was during these long, introspective nights that the boundaries between the tangible and the intangible began to dissolve. I started to perceive the world in layers, each one a translucent veil hiding an undercurrent of emotion and memory. The mundane routines of life were now punctuated by inexplicable phenomena, a sudden gust of wind that carried a scent of ancient pine and distant rain, the sound of laughter that seemed to drift in from a room that no longer existed, the fleeting image of a figure in a doorway that vanished as quickly as it appeared. All these moments, scattered like fragments of a half-remembered melody, added to the sense that my reality had been irrevocably altered. One particularly crisp evening, as a silver mist began to creep over the city streets, I felt an overwhelming compulsion to step outside. The air was sharp with the promise of winter, and the world outside seemed to pulse with a life of its own. With the puppy cradled gently in my arms, I ventured out into the dimly lit corridor of our building. The hallway was strangely silent, every footstep echoing as if the walls themselves were listening. I paused before the heavy wooden door that led to the street, taking a deep breath to steady my racing thoughts. It was in that moment that I realized that my life was no longer solely my own. It had become a confluence of destinies, a merging of the ordinary with the inexplicable. Outside, the city had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and muted light. The street lamps cast long, distorted silhouettes on the pavement, and the winter air hummed with a mysterious energy. As I walked, the puppy nestled close, its small body radiating a peculiar warmth against the biting cold. I felt as though I were walking through a dreamscape, a place where every familiar landmark was overlaid with a spectral glow, where each passing face was a fleeting glimpse of someone else's story, too ephemeral to grasp fully. In the midst of this surreal journey, I encountered a figure standing beneath a flickering street lamp. The person's features were obscured by a thick scarf and a heavy coat, and for a moment, we merely regarded each other in silence, a silent communion of souls who had seen too much, or perhaps too little, to trust the world as it appeared. Before I could speak, the figure melted into the shadows, leaving behind a lingering sense of foreboding that clung to me like the chill of the winter night. The encounter left me with a deep, unshakable impression that I was being drawn inexorably toward something profound, an enigmatic force that transcended the boundaries of everyday logic. I began to record these moments meticulously, scribbling notes in a leather-bound journal that had long sat forgotten on my bookshelf. Each entry was a testament to the collision of the mundane and the mystical, observations of fleeting symbols, half-whispered phrases that seemed to carry hidden meanings, and the recurring presence of the little puppy, whose gaze now seemed imbued with the gravity of ancient wisdom. In the following days, subtle changes began to manifest in ways I could neither explain nor dismiss. The atmosphere around my apartment grew denser, as if the very air were charged with unsaid secrets. Shadows stretched longer and deeper than they once did, and even the familiar hum of the city took on an otherworldly cadence. I found that I was drawn to the window at odd hours, compelled to watch as the interplay of light and darkness outside unfolded like a silent, cosmic ballet. One night, as I sat by the window with the puppy curled in my lap, I witnessed an extraordinary phenomenon. The winter storm, which had seemingly receded, reassembled itself into a swirling vortex of snow and wind, dancing with a kind of chaotic grace that defied natural order. The swirling flurries took on shapes that reminded me of ancient symbols, arcane designs that spoke of forgotten rituals and distant realms. In that moment, I felt a profound connection to something vast and unknowable, as if the storm itself were a messenger from a world beyond our comprehension. I remember the intensity of that experience vividly, the raw, unfiltered surge of emotions that cascaded over me like a tidal wave. It was as if the universe had momentarily laid bare its deepest mysteries, inviting me to witness the sublime interplay of order and chaos. The puppy stirred beside me, its eyes reflecting the tumultuous beauty of the night, and I realized that its arrival at my door was no mere coincidence. It was a catalyst, a small spark that had ignited a flame of transformation, setting me on a path toward revelations that were as terrifying as they were exhilarating. As the nights grew longer and the veil between my inner world and the outer cosmos continued to thin, I began to sense that every element of my existence was being rewritten. The old certainties of life, the safe, predictable rhythms that had once provided comfort, now seemed like fragile constructs, easily shattered by the weight of profound truths. I was left standing at the crossroads of reason and madness, of light and shadow, forced to confront the realization that the life I had known was but a prelude to a far more complex, unsettling narrative. The puppy, ever my silent companion, appeared to grow more attuned to this new reality. Its once timid shivers had given way to a quiet confidence, as if it too understood that our journey was just beginning. I found solace in its steadfast presence, even as I grappled with the unsettling notion that every step I took was part of a larger, incomprehensible design, a design that bound us to forces both benevolent and malevolent, forces that whispered of destiny and doom in equal measure. In the days that followed, I became increasingly introspective. I spent long hours wandering the narrow alleys of my thoughts, seeking out fragments of meaning in dreams, in the soft murmur of rain, and in the almost imperceptible shift of the wind. I questioned everything, the solidity of the world around me, the very nature of reality, and the hidden symphony of events that now orchestrated my life. It was a period of profound uncertainty, where the boundaries between what was real and what was imagined blurred into a hazy continuum of possibility and peril. At times, I felt as though I were teetering on the edge of an abyss, a precipice from which I could either leap into a realm of sublime understanding or be swallowed by the insidious darkness that lay in wait. The puppy's presence was a constant reminder that, even in the midst of overwhelming uncertainty, there existed a fragile hope, a spark of life that could light the way through even the deepest shadows. Its eyes, ever watchful and inscrutable, seemed to tell me that every mystery, no matter how daunting, held the promise of transformation. Now, as I continue to chart the contours of this uncharted journey, I am struck by the profound realization that my encounter with that freezing puppy was not an isolated anomaly. Rather, it was the opening chord of a symphony, a complex, haunting melody that reverberates through every moment of my existence. With each passing day, as the ordinary and the extraordinary continue to entwine, I find myself compelled to delve deeper into the labyrinth of my own soul, to unearth the hidden truths that lie beneath the surface of a world that is at once both familiar and unrecognizable. In this twilight of certainty and doubt, I have come to accept that my life is no longer governed solely by the rational, predictable patterns of yesterday. It is now a living narrative, shaped by the interplay of fate and free will, by moments of stark beauty and sudden terror. And as I move forward, hand in hand with that enigmatic creature, I carry with me the silent promise that every unanswered question, every fleeting glimpse of the surreal, is but a stepping stone on the path to a revelation that will forever alter the fabric of my being. There is an electric charge in the air, a tension that speaks of impending change, of a future where the boundaries between the known and the unknown are forever blurred. And though I cannot say what lies ahead, I find solace in the certainty of one thing, that the story, which began with a single, desperate knock at my door, will continue to unravel in ways that challenge everything I once believed to be true. In the days that followed, a profound transformation began to permeate every fiber of my existence. I awoke each morning with the strange sensation that reality had acquired new dimensions, a subtle layering of time and meaning that made even the most mundane moments shimmer with hidden significance. The puppy, whose small body had once trembled in the cold, now appeared almost otherworldly. Its eyes, deep and reflective, seemed to hold secrets not only of this world, but of realms far beyond human ken. I found myself compelled to seek out the origins of the mysteries that now wove through my life. At first, it was the quiet moments, the way the early sunlight, hesitant and pale, filtered through frost-laced windows, the soft murmur of traffic and distant voices that seemed imbued with ancient echoes. But soon, these moments of gentle beauty gave way to experiences that defied explanation. The walls of my apartment, once solid and predictable, now pulsed with an imperceptible rhythm, as though the building itself were alive, breathing in time with a hidden cosmic cadence. One evening, driven by a mixture of dread and a desperate yearning for answers, I ascended the narrow, creaking stairs to the attic, a space I had long neglected. There, amid forgotten relics and the dust of bygone years, I discovered a battered, leather-bound journal. It belonged to my grandfather, a man whose eyes had always hinted at secrets and a sorrowful wisdom. As I carefully turned its fragile pages, I encountered entries that chronicled strange omens and inexplicable happenings, mentions of spectral guardians, prophetic dreams, and an enigmatic creature described as both a harbinger and a protector during times of great upheaval. One passage in particular described a guardian of frost and flame, whose arrival marked the beginning of a fateful transformation, a guardian whose description sent shivers down my spine and resonated uncomfortably with the image of the little puppy now curled up at my feet. The journal stirred something deep within me, a recognition that the boundaries between past and present, between dream and waking life, were dissolving. Over the following weeks, my nights grew restless. I began to notice that when I closed my eyes, the visions of that first night would return with relentless clarity, flickering images of a spectral figure wandering deserted streets, the murmur of voices that seemed to call from the dark recesses of ancient cathedrals, and the persistent, almost imperceptible sound of scratching, a sound echoing the desperate plea of that fateful knock. In these dreams, I wandered through landscapes that were at once hauntingly familiar and unsettlingly alien, where the interplay of shadow and light painted scenes of both wonder and foreboding. By day, the world outside my window continued its relentless motion, indifferent to the surreal drama unfolding within me. Yet, every glance out the pane seemed laden with potential. A street lamp's glow might betray the outline of a ghostly figure, a sudden gust of wind could carry with it the scent of something unnameable, as if nature itself were trying to whisper forgotten secrets. I began to record these impressions meticulously, scribbling down every detail in a notebook that soon overflowed with fragmented observations, half-formed thoughts, and cryptic symbols that I felt compelled to decipher. The once familiar rhythm of my life had become a delicate dance between the tangible and the inexplicable, a dance that left me both exhilarated and terrified. One particularly moonless night, when the rain had given way to a steady drizzle that blurred the edges of the world, I ventured out with the puppy cradled beneath my coat. The city, transformed by the haze of a cold mist, revealed itself as a labyrinth of shifting shadows and luminous puddles that mirrored an uncanny reality. I wandered through narrow alleys and abandoned courtyards, where the very air seemed thick with the residue of old legends. In a forgotten park, overgrown with wild ivy and haunted by the skeletal remains of a once thriving playground, I encountered a figure cloaked entirely in darkness. For a few excruciating seconds, our eyes met, a silent, electric communion that conveyed sorrow, warning, and an unspoken promise of transformation. Then the figure melted into the gloom, leaving behind an echo of despair that clung to my soul like the chill of winter. These encounters, fleeting yet powerful, compelled me to delve even deeper. I began to follow the clues that fate, however capricious, had laid before me. A mysterious letter arrived one morning, slipped under my door with no indication of its sender. Its envelope, thick and textured with intricate designs that shifted in the dim light, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Inside, written in an elegant, archaic hand, were verses that spoke of ancient rites, prophesied convergences, and the arrival of a guardian who embodied both the fragility of ice and the ferocity of flame. Every word resonated as though it were a key to unlocking a hidden chapter of my destiny. I could feel the threads of my past and future intertwining, each sentence of the letter drawing me inexorably toward a destiny that defied the logic of everyday existence. As I absorbed the letter's cryptic message, a torrent of emotions washed over me, fear mingled with an inexplicable sense of purpose. The puppy, ever vigilant, pressed close to me as if offering silent reassurance. Its small body radiated a warmth that contrasted sharply with the biting chill of the night, a symbol of fragile hope amid the encroaching darkness. I clutched the letter, its weight both physical and symbolic, and resolved to follow its directions. The message hinted at landmarks of old, a decrepit chapel, a crumbling cemetery, a weathered bridge spanning a river said to carry the voices of the lost. Each location promised to reveal fragments of a grand, interconnected story, a tale of destiny inscribed in the very fabric of time. With hesitant determination, I set out on this quest. My journey led me first to an ancient chapel, its stone walls etched with the passage of centuries. Inside, the air was thick with incense and the murmurs of long-forgotten prayers. Faded murals depicted celestial beings and mythic battles between light and darkness, their images worn yet resolute against the march of time. As I moved slowly through the sacred space, I felt the presence of countless souls whose hopes, despairs, and secrets had become woven into the chapel's very essence. The puppy trotted silently at my side, its luminous eyes reflecting the dance of candlelight on cold, ancient stone. In that moment, I realized that the creature was far more than a mere pet. It was a silent guardian, a messenger entrusted with the weight of forgotten lore. Yet, with each new discovery, the world around me seemed to tilt further away from the familiar. I began to question the solidity of my existence. Were my thoughts truly my own, or had I unwittingly become a pawn in a narrative far grander and more mysterious than I could ever comprehend? The letter's verses haunted my every waking moment, their ambiguous promises echoing in the recesses of my mind like a half-remembered lullaby. I started to feel as if I were caught in a delicate balance between free will and destiny, a balance that teetered on the edge of chaos with every step I took. Night after night, I returned home with a mind brimming with questions and a heart heavy with anticipation. The apartment, once a haven of predictable routines, now felt like a portal to the unknown. Shadows stretched along the corridors as if reaching out to confide their hidden truths, and every creak of the floorboards carried with it the faint murmur of ancient voices. At times, I would catch a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of something that vanished before I could focus its shape. It was as if the boundaries between the physical and the spectral had become perilously thin, allowing the secrets of a bygone era to seep into the present. One evening, I found myself standing before a large, ornate mirror that had hung in the hallway for as long as I could remember. Its surface, rimmed with intricate carvings, now seemed to shimmer with an inner light. As I gazed into it, I felt an overwhelming pull, as though the mirror were not merely reflecting my image, but offering a window into another realm. In that reflective surface, I saw not only my own wearied face, but also fragments of other lives, fleeting images of distant strangers, forlorn figures wandering empty landscapes, and faces filled with a sorrowful wisdom that defied explanation. For a long, suspended moment, I felt as if the mirror were a portal, beckoning me to step through and embrace the totality of the mystery that had come to define my existence. The more I explored these strange, intertwined layers of reality, the more I realized that the boundaries I once held sacred were dissolving. The ordinary rituals of life, the sound of the kettle whistling, the crisp rustle of newspaper pages, the gentle hum of conversation in a bustling cafe, are now vibrated with an undercurrent of something ineffable. Each act, each moment of stillness or excitement, was imbued with a spectral significance that blurred the lines between memory and prophecy. I began to understand that the universe was far more expansive, far more intricate, than I had ever dared to imagine. In the midst of this internal revolution, I reached a quiet, introspective moment one winter's night. The storm outside had subsided to a gentle murmur, and the world beyond my window lay in a state of hushed expectancy. I sat at my desk, the letter spread before me like a sacred map, its cryptic verses glowing softly in the lamplight. The puppy lay curled at my feet, its gentle breathing a constant rhythm that mirrored the pulsing of my own heart. As I reread the mysterious lines, I could almost hear the cadence of an ancient incantation, a call to awaken the dormant parts of my soul and to embrace the chaos of the unknown. In that fragile silence, I resolved to continue my journey, to follow wherever these intertwined threads of fate might lead me. There was no turning back now. The arrival of the freezing puppy had shattered the illusions of my former life and opened a door to realms both magnificent and terrifying. With the enigmatic letter as my guide, and the unwavering presence of the remarkable creature by my side, I felt a stirring of courage deep within, a determination to confront whatever lay hidden in the shadows, to explore the cryptic intersections of destiny and free will. As dawn broke, casting the world in soft hues of gold and rose, I stepped out into the waking day with a heart both heavy and hopeful. The city, with its bustling streets and familiar faces, seemed transformed, each ordinary detail now tinged with the extraordinary. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with revelations and riddles, beauty and despair, but I could no longer cling to the safety of what I once knew. In that luminous moment, I embraced the uncertainty, ready to traverse the labyrinth of secrets and emerge on the other side, forever changed by the mysterious convergence of fate that began with a single, desperate knock at my door. And so, with every step I took along those rain-slicked streets, every whispered secret that danced upon the wind, I ventured further into a world where the boundaries of time, memory, and destiny intertwined in a ceaseless, enigmatic waltz. The gentle warmth of the puppy, the cryptic message of the letter, and the spectral visions that haunted my dreams became my constant companions, guiding me toward a revelation that promised to unravel the deepest mysteries of my soul. I awoke the next morning with an insatiable pull toward the unknown, a force that urged me to follow the fragmented clues scattered throughout the cryptic letter and my grandfather's long-forgotten journal. The sky was overcast, a dense shroud of grey that cloaked the city in a somber melancholy, and the air bore the scent of damp earth and ancient secrets. With the little guardian at my side, I set out to trace the winding path to the next destination, an old cemetery that had once been mentioned in a faded line of verse. The journey to the cemetery was like a slow descent into another realm. Every step along the narrow, rain-worn sidewalks resonated with a heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with my own, echoing the quiet pulse of the universe itself. The puppy trotted faithfully alongside me, its eyes alert and shimmering with a strange, knowing light, as if it were privy to the hidden layers of reality that I was only beginning to perceive. I couldn't shake the sensation that the streets, the lamplight, and even the rustling leaves were all complicit in a grand, inexplicable design. When I finally reached the cemetery, I was struck by the profound stillness that blanketed the place. Time appeared to have folded in on itself. The gravestones, weathered and covered in creeping ivy, stood as silent sentinels of memories long past. The air was heavy with the collective whisper of countless souls, each marked by a story of love, loss, and mystery. As I wandered among the ancient markers, a sense of reverence mingled with an undercurrent of unease, a feeling that I had stepped into a sacred space where the veil between life and death was exceptionally thin. I felt inexplicably drawn to a particular grave that seemed to exude an aura of both sorrow and quiet strength. Its inscription was nearly erased by time, yet the delicate letters hinted at a name that resonated with something deep within me, a connection, perhaps, to my own lineage or to the spectral figure that had haunted my dreams. With trembling fingers, I reached out to trace the contours of the stone, and in that instant, a surge of fragmented visions rushed through me. I saw flashes of a bygone era, candlelit vigils held in hushed tones, whispered prayers carried on the wind, and the solemn march of mourners beneath a sky heavy with impending change. The puppy began to stir, its tiny frame tensing as if it sensed the awakening of something profound beneath the earth. A soft, almost imperceptible murmur rose from the surrounding silence, a chorus of voices that mingled with the rustle of brittle leaves. I paused, my heart pounding in tandem with the low hum of the unseen, and listened as the wind seemed to carry a message, a delicate yet urgent plea that transcended the boundaries of time. In that moment, it felt as though the cemetery itself was speaking, sharing fragments of ancient wisdom and hidden truths that defied the confines of ordinary existence. A chill ran through me, not born solely of the crisp autumn air, but from the stirring of an awareness that I was standing at the crossroads of destiny and memory. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a fleeting glimpse of movement, a figure, draped in a tattered cloak, emerging from the shadows between the gravestones. The figure moved with a measured, almost spectral grace, its face obscured in darkness, yet its presence radiated an undeniable familiarity. For a suspended moment, our eyes met, and in that silent communion, I sensed a deep sadness, a warning, and a promise that the path I had embarked upon was laden with truths as profound as they were perilous. Before I could gather my thoughts or utter a word, the figure melted back into the gloom, leaving me with a lingering echo of its presence. The puppy's soft whimper broke the silence, its small body shivering in unspoken anticipation. I felt a surge of determination, an urging to delve deeper, to uncover the hidden narratives that bound the past to the present. With careful steps, I continued along the winding path between the monuments, each footfall stirring up a dust of memories and forgotten dreams. Every stone, every weathered carving, whispered secrets of those who had come before, of lives interlaced with moments of transcendent joy and unbearable sorrow. I found a secluded corner of the cemetery, where the gravestones clustered beneath the boughs of a gnarled oak, its twisted limbs reaching skyward like beseeching hands. Beneath that ancient tree, I discovered a small plaque, half concealed by moss and time. The inscription was faint, yet unmistakable, a single name and a date that felt both distant and hauntingly present. As I knelt to read it, an inexplicable sensation overcame me, a melding of melancholy and hope that left my heart both heavy and buoyant. In that quiet moment, I realized that every fragment of this surreal journey was a deliberate piece of a puzzle, urging me to look beyond the surface of everyday reality and embrace the mysteries that lay hidden in the shadows. The encounter at the grave stirred something deep within me, a recognition that the tapestry of my life was being rewoven by forces that defied simple explanation. I closed my eyes, allowing the murmurs of the past to seep into my consciousness, each whisper a reminder that I was not alone in this journey. The ethereal voices of those who had once walked this earth mingled with my own thoughts, forming a delicate symphony of memory, loss, and possibility. It was as if the cemetery, with its silent testimonies, was urging me to honor the legacy of the past while forging a path toward a destiny yet to be revealed. Rising slowly, I took one last lingering look at the solitary grave beneath the oak, a symbol of all that had been and all that might yet come to pass. With the puppy nestled close, its warm, trusting eyes reflecting both the burden of history and the promise of renewal, I left the cemetery behind. The heavy iron gate closed behind me with a resonant clang, sealing the sacred ground as if to remind me that some doors, once opened, lead only to deeper mysteries. Walking back through the rain-washed streets, I felt the weight of the encounter settle into my very bones, a mixture of awe, trepidation, and a profound sense of connection to something far greater than myself. The spectral figure, the murmuring voices, and the faded names etched in stone were not mere echoes of the past, they were beacons guiding me toward revelations that beckoned from the periphery of consciousness. Every step forward was now both an act of defiance and an embrace of the unknown, a silent promise to unravel the threads of destiny, no matter how tangled they might prove. That night, as I sat in the flickering glow of a solitary street lamp in my quiet apartment, I replayed the day's events in my mind. The letter's enigmatic verses, the secrets hidden within the old journal, and the visceral experience at the cemetery coalesced into a single, insistent truth. My life was now a narrative written in both light and shadow, in joy and sorrow, in the tangible and the ineffable. The puppy, ever my steadfast companion, lay curled at my feet, a living reminder that even in the deepest darkness, a spark of life and hope endures. I could sense that the path ahead was fraught with peril and wonder alike, a journey that would force me to confront not only the mysteries of my ancestry, but the very nature of reality itself. And so, with a heart both heavy and resolute, I resolved to follow the next whisper of destiny, to seek out the next relic of ancient wisdom, and to let the interplay of fate and free will guide me ever deeper into the labyrinth of secrets that had, from that fateful moment, become my new reality. I returned to my apartment with a mind still reeling from the day's revelations, yet a new, almost imperceptible shift began to weave its way through every corner of my familiar sanctuary. That evening, as the last vestiges of daylight surrendered to the relentless embrace of night, the house itself seemed to stir with a life of its own. The gentle hum of the refrigerator and the familiar creaks of the old wooden floors had taken on a different timbre, a slow, measured pulse that mirrored the heartbeat of an ancient, slumbering secret. Driven by a compulsion I couldn't quite define, I wandered through the dim corridors of my home, each step echoing in a silence that felt heavy with anticipation. In the study, under the wavering light of a solitary lamp, I noticed something that made my breath catch. A series of shallow, almost deliberate scratches had appeared on the surface of my desk. They were too precise, too patterned to be the mere play of randomware or the wandering antics of a pet. Instead, they resembled cryptic symbols, runes that hinted at a language older than memory itself. I felt an involuntary shiver, as if those delicate incisions were a bridge, linking the tangible world to an unseen realm of whispered histories and forgotten lore. Unable to shake the feeling that my home was now a silent witness to forces beyond my understanding, I traced each mark with trembling fingers. The texture of the scratches was strangely cool, almost metallic, and in that moment I recalled the faded pages of my grandfather's journal, the passages that spoke of ancestral rites, clandestine meetings under moonlit skies, and the mysterious guardians that appeared in times of great change. It was as though my past, long relegated to the dust of forgotten attics and the yellowing of old letters, had reached out through these enigmatic signs to beckon me toward a deeper truth. My thoughts spiraled, mingling with the shadows that danced along the walls, and I found myself drawn to the basement, a place I'd long avoided, partly due to its chill and partly because it had always whispered of secrets best left undisturbed. Clutching a flickering flashlight, I descended the creaking steps into the bowels of the house. The basement was a labyrinth of forgotten relics and crumbling memories, cardboard boxes filled with yellowed photographs, stacks of brittle letters tied with fraying ribbons, and among them, an ornate wooden chest that seemed oddly out of place. Something compelled me to open that chest. With each slow, deliberate motion, I lifted its heavy lid, revealing a trove of artifacts that defied the ordinary. There, nestled amid layers of faded velvet, lay a silver locket embossed with intricate, archaic designs. Beside it, a folded, fragile map bore cryptic annotations in a hand that echoed the style of my grandfather's looping script. And at the very bottom, wrapped in a small, embroidered pouch, lay a delicate key. As my fingers brushed against its cool, smooth surface, a pulse, barely perceptible yet insistent, vibrated through the metal, as if it were alive with the energy of a long-forgotten promise. For a long, suspended moment, I held the key up to the dim light, watching its facets catch the glow and scatter tiny sparks of brilliance. In that instant, the boundaries between past and present blurred. I could almost hear echoes of whispered incantations and the rustle of silk and wind, voices from another era speaking directly to me. The artifacts, though silent, seemed to resonate with a purpose that was both alluring and profoundly unsettling. They were not mere relics, they were tokens of an ancient covenant, left behind by those who had once dared to glimpse the hidden layers of reality. The discovery sent a tremor through my core, a mixture of dread and an inexplicable yearning to understand. I remembered the spectral figure at the cemetery, the ghostly murmur of voices in the wind, and the solitary plea in the mysterious letter. Every piece of this unfolding puzzle spoke of destiny intertwined with an unfathomable legacy. Was it mere coincidence that the key, the locket, and the map had surfaced now? Or were they deliberately arranged by forces beyond my control, orchestrating a silent symphony that would eventually lead me to the heart of the mystery? As I gathered the relics with careful reverence, the basement around me seemed to sigh with relief, as if exhaling secrets that had long been held captive in the darkness. The air grew thick with a palpable expectancy, and every shadow along the rough stone walls appeared to shiver with memories of ancient rites and unspoken promises. The silence was no longer empty, it was filled with the resonance of voices from the past, a gentle, persistent murmur that beckoned me to listen, to remember, and to dare embrace the unknown. Returning to the upper floors, I felt transformed, as if the discovery had ignited a dormant flame within me. The silver locket lay nestled in the palm of my hand, its cool weight a reminder of the fragile bridge between what I knew and what lay beyond the veil of everyday perception. The map's cryptic markings and the key's silent pulse had planted seeds of questions that now sprouted wildly in my mind. What did these symbols mean? To what ancient door did the key belong? And how were these relics connected to the enigmatic guardian, a freezing puppy whose presence had upended my entire reality? That night, as I sat by my study window and watched the city's lights flicker like distant stars against the velvety dark, I felt an inexorable pull to piece together the fragments of this mysterious inheritance. The relics whispered secrets of a time when magic and reality were interwoven, when guardians walked among men, and the veil between worlds was as thin as a breath. I knew that the answers lay hidden in the echoes of the past, in the faded words of a long-forgotten script, and in the silent, watchful eyes of the guardian that had chosen to reveal itself to me. In the quiet hours before dawn, with the silver locket glinting softly in my grasp and the key lying beside it like a silent sentinel, I made a silent vow to uncover the hidden narrative of my lineage, to follow the trail of symbols and signs that now illuminated my path, and to embrace the mystery that had so irrevocably altered the tapestry of my life. The journey ahead was shrouded in uncertainty and danger, yet it promised a revelation that could redefine everything I had ever believed about fate, family, and the fragile boundary between the seen and unseen. Thus, as the first hints of morning crept into the darkness, I resolved to embark on this quest with a heart both heavy with trepidation and buoyed by an unyielding sense of purpose. With the enigmatic relics as my guides and the memory of that fateful, freezing encounter etched into my soul, I stepped forward into the unknown, ready to confront the mysteries that lay hidden in the silent corridors of time and memory. With the blue moon high overhead, I felt the weight of that otherworldly night receding into a quiet, hopeful hum as I retraced my steps along the winding forest path. Every footfall seemed to echo with the resonance of ancient lore, and the relics in my satchel, each a silent testimony to my newfound legacy, throbbed with an energy that both comforted and unsettled me. The forest, still alive with the murmurs of forgotten voices and the rustle of timeless leaves, felt like an endless archive of secrets waiting to be revealed. My mind wandered back to that fateful moment when I first answered the desperate scratching at my door, the tiny, freezing puppy whose wide, knowing eyes had opened a portal to an existence where the ordinary and the mystical danced in unison. Now, that same creature lay peacefully curled at my feet as I stepped from the clearing, a steadfast companion amid the soft luminescence of the waning blue moon. Its presence was a constant reminder that even in the vast tapestry of fate, every living soul, no matter how small, carried within it the spark of profound destiny. As I emerged from the forest's embrace and approached the sleepy outskirts of the city, the relics beckoned me toward yet another piece of the puzzle. The cryptic envelope's verses and the map's faded lines urged me onward, hinting at an old manor on the edge of town, a place rumored to be steeped in family history and obscure rituals. The manor, long abandoned and whispered about in hushed tones, was said to hold the remnants of an era when the boundaries between the mundane and the mystical were less rigid, a haven for those who dared to dream of the extraordinary. Navigating the silent streets under the cool glow of streetlights, I arrived before the manor's imposing iron gates. The structure loomed like a spectral sentinel, its once grand facade now etched with time's melancholic signature. Ivy clung to its weathered stone walls, and broken windows offered fleeting glimpses into dark, cavernous rooms. I hesitated for a heartbeat, the cool metal key from the chest warm in my trembling hand. With a deep, steadying breath, I pushed open the creaking gate and crossed the threshold into a realm that felt suspended between memory and myth. Inside, the manor was shrouded in an eerie stillness, a silence so profound it seemed to vibrate with the echoes of past lives. I moved cautiously through dim corridors, guided by the soft luminescence of my flashlight and the subtle pulse of the relics. Each step stirred motes of dust that danced in the stagnant air, while every creak of the floorboard spoke of secrets that had lain dormant for decades. The atmosphere was charged, as if the manor itself were aware of my presence and the destiny that had led me to its decaying heart. In one of the grand, dilapidated rooms, I discovered a portrait of a stern-looking woman, her eyes penetrating and regal despite the ravages of time. A faded plaque beneath the painting bore a single name, Evangeline. The similarity of the name to one scribbled in my grandfather's journal sent a shiver of recognition through me. Was this woman, her gaze both formidable and sorrowful, a long-lost ancestor, a guardian of the secrets that now coursed through my veins? The thought stirred something deep within me, urging me to seek answers in the relics and in the cryptic writings that had begun to form the mosaic of my lineage. I spent hours in that forgotten room, poring over fragments of old letters and brittle manuscripts scattered on a dust-laden table. Each document painted a picture of a family steeped in arcane tradition and clandestine rituals, a lineage dedicated to preserving a fragile bridge between the mortal world and the realms beyond. The writing spoke of rites performed under rare celestial alignments, of mystical guardians born from both frost and flame, and of sacrifices made to secure the flow of ancient wisdom through generations. Every detail, every half-forgotten ritual, resonated with the extraordinary events that had unraveled in my life ever since that freezing puppy had appeared at my door. The manor, with its sorrowful beauty and spectral echoes, became both a repository of the past and a beacon for the future I was destined to shape. I carefully collected the documents that seemed most integral to the family's hidden lore, tucking them alongside the silver locket, the key, and the map in my satchel. As I prepared to leave, I felt the silent weight of history settle on my shoulders, a reminder that I had inherited not just a legacy, but a responsibility to unlock the mysteries that bridged generations. Outside, under the quiet gaze of the moon, I paused at the manor's threshold to reflect on the labyrinthine journey that had brought me here. The familiar hum of the city mingled with the distant, almost imperceptible cadence of ancient incantations, creating a symphony of past and present. The freezing puppy nudged my leg gently, a gesture of reassurance and shared resolve. In its eyes, I saw a reflection of my own determination, a spark of defiance against the confines of an ordinary existence. I knew that my quest was far from over. The relics had awakened a dormant current within me, a deep-seated yearning to reclaim lost memories and confront the enigmas that had long been buried beneath layers of time. Every step forward promised not only revelations about my ancestry, but also a transformation of my own soul, a journey toward understanding that the boundary between the known and the unknown was merely an invitation to look deeper. With the relics safely stowed and the cryptic whispers of the manor echoing in my mind, I resumed my journey into the night. The next destination, as hinted by the map and the old manuscripts, lay beyond the city, a secluded valley said to conceal a forgotten temple, a sanctum where the rituals of old were once performed beneath the watchful eyes of celestial guardians. It was there, amid the quiet majesty of nature and the lingering traces of ancient rites, that I would seek the next chapter of my destiny. As I walked along a narrow, winding road bordered by dark silhouettes of towering trees, I felt the familiar pulse of anticipation in my veins. The road ahead was uncertain and shrouded in the mystery of what lay beyond each bend, yet with every measured step, I embraced the unknown. The relics, the whispering past, and the silent promise of the freezing puppy that had forever altered my course melded into a singular force, a call to venture boldly into the realms of memory, myth, and transformation. In that moment, I understood that my journey was not just an exploration of ancestral secrets, but a profound quest to reconcile the disparate realms of light and shadow within my own soul. The path was fraught with both beauty and danger, wonder and despair, yet it pulsed with the eternal rhythm of destiny, a rhythm that beckoned me ever onward, toward a future shaped by the echoes of the past and the luminous promise of what was yet to be revealed. And so, beneath the watchful eye of a moon that had borne silent witness to centuries of dreams and mysteries, I continued forward, each step a testament to the convergence of fate, the enduring power of legacy, and the transformative journey that began one cold, fateful night with a solitary, freezing puppy scratching at my door. I pressed onward through a narrow corridor of ancient trees, each gnarled branch twisting overhead like the arthritic fingers of forgotten gods. The forest path led me, step by tentative step, into a secluded valley whose air was thick with both mist and memory. Every crunch of frost underfoot seemed to awaken echoes of bygone eras, while the soft, constant presence of the puppy at my side lent a gentle warmth to an otherwise eerie landscape. I clutched the relics, the silver locket, the ornate key, and the faded map, as if they were talismans against the unknown, each object humming with an energy that defied the ordinary. In the distance, barely visible through a gauze of swirling fog, an ancient temple emerged from the earth like a long-forgotten dream. Its weathered stone facade, draped in ivy and crowned with broken columns, exuded an aura of solemn grandeur. I paused at the valley's edge, heart pounding with a mixture of apprehension and wonder, as I surveyed the ruined sanctuary. The temple seemed less like a relic of human endeavor and more like a living archive of secrets, its surface etched with symbols that flickered in the half-light, each carving whispering hints of lost rituals and celestial mysteries. As I approached the weathered structure, the forest itself fell into a reverent hush, as though nature recognized the sanctity of the place. The narrow, twisting path gave way to a small clearing where the temple's silhouette dominated the horizon. The cool air felt charged with anticipation, and the delicate rustle of leaves resembled a soft, ancient hymn. With the puppy's curious gaze fixed on the looming edifice, I took a deep breath and stepped through the overgrown entrance, crossing a threshold that separated the known from the ineffable. Inside, the temple's interior revealed itself as a dim, cavernous space where time had folded in on itself. Shafts of pale light pierced through collapsed segments of the high, vaulted ceiling, casting long, quivering shadows that danced along the stone floor. I could almost sense the echo of whispered prayers and long-forgotten incantations woven into the very fabric of the air. The walls, adorned with intricate carvings depicting celestial beings and mythic battles, seemed to pulse with a quiet vitality. It was as if the temple guarded not only the relics of an ancient civilization, but also the souls and stories of all who had ever sought its solace. Guided by the map's faded lines, which now appeared to correspond with the temple's labyrinthine layout, I found myself drawn toward a central chamber. The relics in my possession resonated with the energy of the space, as if their silent, mysterious power was finally converging with the ancient pulse of the temple. At the threshold of a massive stone door, adorned with cryptic symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light, I realized that the ornate key I had carried for so long was meant for this very moment. My hands trembled as I inserted the key into the lock. With a slow, resonant click that echoed like a heartbeat through the vast stillness, the door began to open. The chamber beyond was nothing short of transcendent. A circular sanctum stretched before me, its domed ceiling painted with vibrant depictions of galaxies and celestial lore, a cosmos captured in exquisite, time-worn artistry. At the heart of the chamber, an altar of polished stone bore an intricate mosaic of symbols, each one a silent verse of an ancient hymn. As I stepped closer, I felt the presence of countless generations converging into this singular point of existence, a profound communion of past, present, and future. The puppy trotted forward with a purpose that belied its diminutive size, its eyes gleaming with a curious mix of innocence and cosmic knowing. It circled the altar before settling in a quiet vigil at its base, as if silently affirming the sacredness of this place. With deliberate care, I removed the silver locket from my pocket and placed it on the altar. The locket's delicate engravings caught the faint light and refracted it into tiny sparks of color, a quiet, luminous dance that felt like the reawakening of a long-dormant promise. I then unfurled the fragile map and aligned its cryptic markings with the mosaic before me. In that instant, the symbols on the altar pulsed in response, and the chamber filled with a resonant hum that vibrated in the very marrow of my bones. In that suspended moment, the boundaries between the tangible and the intangible dissolved. I closed my eyes and allowed the temple to speak its silent language, a language of dreams, memories, and the tender yet relentless march of destiny. Fragments of forgotten rituals and cryptic verses surfaced in my mind's eye, images of solemn ceremonies held under star-strewn skies, voices murmuring incantations in a tongue older than time, and a recurring vision of that freezing puppy, a beacon of hope and transformation that had first led me down this uncharted path. When I finally opened my eyes, the chamber seemed transformed. The once muted symbols now glowed with an inner light, and the cool stone of the altar radiated a gentle warmth that defied the chill of the outside world. In the quiet aftermath of the revelation, I felt a profound shift within me, a stirring of something ancient and powerful, awakening deep within my soul. I knew, with a certainty that was both exhilarating and terrifying, that I had been entrusted with a fragment of a legacy that spanned beyond the confines of mortal life. The temple had not merely revealed its secrets, it had beckoned me to become a custodian of its hidden wisdom, to carry forward the delicate balance between light and shadow, the known and the unknown. With the silence of the temple as my witness, I gathered the relics once more. The locket, the key, and the map were not just artifacts of the past, they were keys to the future, guiding me toward the next chapter of a journey that had already transformed every facet of my existence. The puppy, its luminous eyes reflecting the wonder of the moment, rose and nuzzled my hand, a quiet affirmation that I was not alone in this odyssey. Stepping back into the cool night, I emerged from the temple with a heart both heavy with newfound responsibility and alight with the promise of undiscovered mysteries. The star-strewn sky above, vast and indifferent, now felt like an open canvas upon which my destiny was being written. Each step on the path ahead resonated with the ancient pulse of the temple, urging me onward toward further revelations, deeper truths, and a transformation that would forever alter the tapestry of my life. And so, with the relics cradled close and the guardian puppy trotting faithfully beside me, I resumed my solitary journey into the night, a journey that promised to weave together the delicate threads of memory, myth, and the extraordinary tapestry of fate. In the first light of dawn, I found myself at the summit of a gentle hill, the city spread out below like a living mosaic of memory and hope. The relics I had gathered, the silver locket, the ornate key, and the faded map, now lay in my possession as sacred tokens of a destiny that had been slowly unfurled over countless nights and spectral encounters. The freezing puppy, once a trembling enigma at my doorstep, now walked beside me with a quiet majesty. Its eyes, deep pools of timeless understanding, reflected the inner transformation that had reshaped every fiber of my being. I stood there, bathed in the soft glow of the emerging sun, feeling the pulse of the universe in the rhythm of my heartbeat. Every step that had led me here, through ancient cemeteries, abandoned manors, overgrown temples, and labyrinthine forests, had been a descent into the hidden layers of existence, a journey where the mundane and the mystical intertwined seamlessly. The once familiar contours of my former life had dissolved into a tapestry woven with the threads of forgotten lore and celestial promise. The silver locket, when I finally opened it, revealed a miniature portrait of a woman whose eyes shimmered with sorrow and unspoken wisdom, a silent witness to the legacy of those who came before me. In that fragile, intimate moment, I understood that the burdens of the past were not chains, but guiding lights, urging me to embrace both the beauty and the pain of my lineage. The ornate key, cool and resolute in my hand, had unlocked more than just hidden doors. It had opened a channel to a profound truth that every threshold in life, no matter how forbidding, was an invitation to transformation. And the faded map, its cryptic lines now vibrant with meaning, had been the very compass of my soul, steering me through realms of both light and shadow. I pressed forward, the puppy's gentle nudge against my leg a quiet reminder of the tender hope that had been my constant companion. The cool breeze carried with it the scent of wildflowers and the distant murmur of a brook, a hymn of nature that spoke of rebirth and the eternal cycle of endings and beginnings. With each measured step, I felt the weight of the past giving way to the luminous promise of the future. The city below, once a stage for ordinary routine, now shimmered with a quiet magic, its lights and sounds echoing the cosmic dance between fate and free will. At that moment, a profound realization unfurled within me. The journey was not merely about uncovering the secrets of an ancient legacy, it was about rediscovering the magic inherent in every heartbeat, every whispered secret of the universe. I had been transformed by forces both gentle and fierce, by spectral voices that recited the hymns of forgotten ages, and by a guardian whose small, determined form had bridged the gap between the known and the ineffable. I closed my eyes and let the morning light wash over me, feeling every ray as a benediction that filled me with quiet certainty. The trials, the uncanny encounters, and the unraveling of long-hidden truths had all led to this moment of sublime clarity, a moment where I could finally see that every end was simply a precursor to a new beginning. In the silent communion of that dawn, I embraced the realization that the extraordinary was not beyond reach, it resided in every breath, every step, and every luminous fragment of memory that the world offered. With the relics of my heritage secured and the faithful guardian at my side, I stepped forward into a future now suffused with both the echoes of the past and the vibrant promise of what was to come. The journey had reshaped me, intertwining my fate with that of ancient whispers and celestial wonders. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light upon a world reborn in its quiet majesty, I felt a deep gratitude, and knowing that the transformation that began with a desperate scratching at my door was now the foundation of a life reimagined. And so, as I walked down the hill and back toward the city, a city that now glowed with an inner light of its own, I carried with me every spectral encounter, every fragile relic, and the unyielding spirit of a journey that transcended the ordinary. In that final, transcendent moment, I realized that my destiny was no longer a solitary path, but a tapestry interwoven with the dreams of the past, the miracles of the present, and the infinite promise of the unknown. I stepped into the new day, not as the person I once was, but as one reborn, a custodian of ancient mysteries, a seeker of truths beyond the veil, and a living testament to the enduring magic that awaits when we dare to open our doors to the unexpected.